Part 4. Human Destiny. Section 1. Every human lives two kinds of destinies. Humans have two types of destinies: the destiny of the human Shin and the destiny of the symbiotic Shin. Humans are beings made of matter, whereas Shin are beings made of Ki. The human Shin refers to the Shin that resides within oneself, mirroring the physical form. When the body grows, it grows. When the body falls ill, it falls ill. And when the body ages, it ages. Upon death, the human Shin departs, becoming part of the world of Shin, usually for about 500 to 1,000 years. From birth, humans also harbor another entity, known as the symbiotic Shin, which does not resemble their physical form. This Shin takes control of the body against the person's will, operating under the system of evil Shin. A person lives under the control of the symbiotic Shin from birth until death. The type of symbiotic Shin determines a person's personality, temperament, dietary preferences, constitution, and even appearance. As a result, a person does not live according to their own destiny, but rather the destiny of the symbiotic Shin. Successes, failures, and all events in a person's life, spanning over 100 years, are not for the human Shin, but solely for the symbiotic Shin, by the symbiotic Shin, and of the symbiotic Shin. Even if a person achieves great wealth and honor, and enjoys them, it is the symbiotic Shin that benefits, not the human Shin. Regardless of a person's success, nothing is left for the human Shin. Ultimately, a person's life reflects their symbiotic Shin. Someone with an ox's symbiotic Shin lives like an ox, a tiger's like a tiger, a boar's like a boar, and a snake's like a snake, each behaving according to their characteristics and competing with the symbiotic Shin within others. Therefore, if the symbiotic Shin is strong, the person achieves greatly. If weak, they achieve little. In none of these scenarios does the human Shin play a role. The human Shin, like a useless part, grows with the body, falls ill, ages, and merely stays within the body, dominated by the symbiotic Shin. The insatiable ambition to expand one's territory while living solely for oneself, driven by deeply embedded greed, characterizes the symbiotic Shin. Thus, everyone lives mistakenly, considering that the symbiotic Shin's life is as their own. Ultimately, a person's physical life substitutes for the symbiotic Shin's life. People live their lives, thinking it's their own, without knowing for whom they are living. When a person dies, both the human Shin and the symbiotic Shin depart the body simultaneously. The human Shin, once outside the body, is dazed. Having not prepared for life in the world of Shin while alive and lacking abilities as a Shin, it remains confused. In contrast, the symbiotic Shin abandons the person's body without hesitation, seeking another place to reside, much like moving from one house to another. Despite enjoying numerous benefits by staying in the person's body, taking vital ki, and reaping worldly rewards, it leaves without attachment and seeks a new host. From this moment, the human shin's situation becomes extremely miserable. Lacking abilities as a shin, it struggles to survive and is constantly chased by various evil shin. Moreover, when a person dies, the human shin retains the same condition as at the time of death. If someone died in a war after losing a leg, the shin exists without a leg. If someone died from a car accident with broken bones, the shin remains with broken bones. If someone died of old age, the shin remains weak and frail. And if someone died from illness, the shin continues to bear the illness and pain in the world of shin. Even if the human shin escapes harm from evil shin by luck, a life of hardship awaits in the afterlife. The life of a human shin, starving and freezing, unable to die even if it wants to, barely surviving, is the fate of a human shin, unprepared for death. While the physical body is subordinated to the symbiotic shin and lives on its behalf, the human shin merely inhabits the body without preparing for the world of shin. Therefore, the human shin's fate after leaving the body is inevitably miserable. Now is the time to reclaim the destiny of your human shin. While inhabiting your physical form, you must restore the life of your human shin and strive to overcome the symbiotic shin that oppresses and restricts you, transforming your life into one for the human shin, not the symbiotic shin. Until now, under the system of the betrayal heaven, the symbiotic shin has automatically settled in everyone. Blocked by the symbiotic shin, humans have never been able to know the reality of the world of shin. However, we are now living in the era, ushered in by the new heaven, called the Great Universal Empire of Heaven. Accordingly, all laws of heaven have changed, and the laws established by the evil shin of the betrayal heaven have been entirely wiped out. In other words, the heavenly luck that allows humans to break free from the symbiotic shin, derived from the system of evil shin, has arrived. Section 2. People living at this present time. During the betrayal heaven era, people lived according to the will of the symbiotic shin. The new heaven era, however, is a time when people must possess proper wisdom and discernment, because the laws of the world of shin have entirely changed with the inauguration of the new heaven. The great universe and heaven have become the great universal empire. The heavenly laws of the great universal empire have been proclaimed from the 1st to the 10th. Consequently, these laws have come into effect on earth as well, and the judgment against evil shin has already begun. Mercifully, it is said that people on earth are given a final opportunity to save themselves. People on earth now are divided into 3 groups. First, those whose human shin and symbiotic shin are separated within themselves. This is the most desirable state. Second, those whose human shin and symbiotic shin are half merged within themselves, like a therianthrope. Third, those whose human shin and symbiotic shin are completely merged within themselves. At this point, your reactions may vary. Some may feel moved, some may feel uncertain, some may dismiss this as unnecessary, and others may react with defiance and hostility. Which one are you? Currently, battles against evil shin are ongoing in various places such as mountains, seas, and the sky on earth. The great symbiotic shin of each evil category that used to occupy heaven have already been completely terminated by the heavenly laws and commands of the great universal empire. Now, the great symbiotic shin of each evil category hiding on earth are being eliminated. Since all symbiotic shin are linked to the great symbiotic shin, it is difficult to neutralize their power within people until the great symbiotic shin are eliminated. However, separating the symbiotic shin and the human shin within oneself is a task that each person must undertake individually. Some may question why the Almighty Judgment cannot eliminate all the symbiotic shin within people at once. However, if that were to happen, it must be noted that 2/3 of humanity, specifically those in the second and third groups, would perish. Until now, when a person died, the first group would have their symbiotic shin and human shin separated, allowing the symbiotic shin to seek another place and the human shin to live in the world of shin for 500 to 1,000 years. Conversely, the second and third groups would not have their symbiotic shin and human shin separated even after death. They would be reborn as various mutated shin, with animal upper bodies and human lower bodies, human upper bodies and animal lower bodies, animal bodies with human faces, or like mermaids with human upper bodies and fish lower bodies. In the future, even if these shin reside in human bodies, they will all be terminated. At that time, the symbiotic shin of the first group will be terminated, but the person will survive. However, the second and third groups will perish, because the human shin merged with the symbiotic shin are also deemed evil shin and will be annihilated together. When the human shin dies, the person will die as well. Heaven judges not people, but evil shin. However, by this principle, people will also face judgment. Consequently, more than 2/3 of the current human population will be annihilated. At that time, people in the second and third groups will die suddenly and inexplicably, whether they are sitting, standing, walking, working, eating, or sleeping. Therefore, heaven grants people a chance and warns them, separate your human shin from the symbiotic shin, only then will you survive. The day of judgment is coming, sooner or later. Those who separate their human shin from the symbiotic shin will be saved, but those who don't will inevitably face judgment. Even within heaven's judgment, there is a light of salvation. Those who seek this light will be saved. However, heaven's judgment also brings fear and dread, and those who do not find this light will be judged forever, along with the evil shin. This present time has been long prepared for. Who can guarantee that you are not in the second or third group? False clergy and false prophets belong to these groups. Therefore, you must not be tempted by them. Listening to them means entering the path of the second and third groups. In this urgent time of separating your human shin from the symbiotic shin, you must not be swayed by them. Heaven has declared that they will be judged first. It is said that the salvation of humanity starts with yourself. After saving yourself, if you use this knowledge to help save your loved ones and inform others, that is the true meaning of the salvation of humanity. The era of repeating vain theories and blind faith is now over. A new era has begun, where one can live a life led by the human Shin, instead of a life dominated by the symbiotic Shin, by separating one's human Shin from the symbiotic Shin within oneself. Section 3. How to change your destiny. We now understand the fate and judgment of humans. Born as humans, they are subordinated to their symbiotic Shin, never living a life true to their own nature. After death, they endure a miserable existence as human Shin in the world of Shin. Even while alive, the human Shin merge with the symbiotic Shin, and at the time of judgment, they ultimately perish along with the evil Shin. None of these can be said to be the true destiny of humans. Now is the time to reclaim our stolen destiny, which has been overturned by the symbiotic Shin. This path frees oneself from the fear of judgment, marking the beginning of self-salvation. It is also the path to escape the enslaved life, of living the symbiotic Shin's fate, instead of one's own. How can a human escape the control of the symbiotic Shin and find their true destiny? The answer lies in listening to the voice of the young. Most people assess everything based on knowledge. However, there are aspects that cannot be understood by knowledge alone, such as the world of Shin. The history of humanity is long, and throughout this time there have been many sages, brilliant scholars, and clergy. If the world of Shin could be revealed by knowledge alone, it would have already been fully explained by these people long ago. People in modern society have access to far more diverse information and knowledge than those in the past. However, this does not mean they have clearly elucidated the world of Shin. Not only have they failed to interpret the vast and complex world of Shin, but they also often make conflicting claims even about the afterlife. Ultimately, no aspect of the world of Shin can be revealed through human knowledge. Now, we must listen to the voice of the young. Only the young knows all truths. You must continue seeking with the heart of the young and keep acting with the excitement of the young. Since the young desires the success of the human Shin it inhabits, heeding the young's voice will bring you closer to your true destiny. Only the young is eternal, having lived countless lives from the past to the present. Born into a physical life, it lives, dies, and then lives as a Shin. When the Shin's life ends, it enters the cycle of reincarnation again, flowing through nature with the wind and clouds, until it lands on the spot for the next life. The young repeats the same life cycle from that point onward. Every person living today has endlessly repeated this process without exception. The young desires to acquire the human body and Shin, because only humans are given the blessed opportunity for salvation and the chance to live a true life. However, even if the young encounters a human body, it must compete with numerous other young within that body to be reborn as a human. Therefore, it is said to be more difficult than picking stars from the sky for a young to obtain a human body and shin. After such a miraculous process, what is a human life actually like? Unfortunately, while the young and the human shin should be the owners, the symbiotic shin takes control, directing the human's life and fate. The young's aspiration to find a true life is blocked by the symbiotic shin, unable to progress even a single step. In such a reality, what good is a comfortable life, filled with wealth and honor, if it is all for the symbiotic shin? The young, after countless reincarnations, is overjoyed to be born as a human, as if picking stars from the sky. However, the human, ignoring the young's voice and living as a tool of the symbiotic shin, as if hypnotized, is oblivious to the sorrow of the young, which must soon enter the unending cycle of reincarnation again. It is time to awaken your sleeping self. Until now, humans have devoted everything to the fate of the symbiotic shin. Without knowing this reality, humans have only been concerned with how to live well in the current life. No one has concerned themselves with the fate of the true self, the human shin. As a reminder, regardless of how one lived or what kind of life one enjoyed, humans live out the fate of the symbiotic shin and eventually die. After nearly 100 years of life, upon leaving the body, they enter the world of shin, where, as human shin, they are chased and harassed by evil shin, living for 500 to 1,000 years. This fate has been endlessly repeated for humans, from the past to the present. More serious is the merging of the human shin and the symbiotic shin, causing the human shin itself to disappear. This newly mutated shin is called the demonized human shin. Shockingly, this situation occurs while humans are still alive. Despite this reality, people ignore what is happening in the world of shin. One reason is that those in the second group, where the human shin and symbiotic shin are half merged, and the third group, where they are fully merged, thoroughly obey the symbiotic shin. Evil shin use all means necessary to prevent people from knowing their true identity. If people learn the truth, the evil shin will have no place to reside. People in the second and third groups are deluded into believing that these actions of evil shin derive from their own thoughts and judgments, accepting them as true. Ignorance is no excuse. If one knows but does not act, they are ultimately choosing to fall into the mire of evil. Now, we must fight against the evil shin that have stolen the fate of humans. Knowing the truth, we must not fear the battle against the evil shin. Instead of merging with the symbiotic shin, we must advance with strong will, even if it means going down fighting. In doing so, we must defeat the evil shin to reclaim our true lives and destinies. Section 4. Ack-shin-juk-au-ra, Reciting Method. From the moment of birth until even after death, a person's life is threatened by evil shin. Therefore, everyone, regardless of their doctrines, theories, or teachings, must fight against the evil shin from where they are, correct the wrongs, and find the path to living a righteous life. So, How can a human fight and win against the evil Shin? As mentioned earlier about the merging of the human Shin and the symbiotic Shin, currently 2 out of 3 people have significantly merged their human Shin with the symbiotic Shin. In such a situation, the most urgent task is to separate the human Shin from the symbiotic Shin. This separation is only possible while living in the physical world. Once you die and enter the world of Shin, it becomes impossible to separate them. Therefore, the separation must be done while alive. What is the method to prevent the merging of the human Shin and the symbiotic Shin during one's lifetime, and to separate those that have already merged? The answer is the reciting method, Ack-shin-juk-au-ra, meaning evil Shin, perish. This is the method of the holy Shin from heaven, possessing the ability and power to judge the evil Shin. It enables you to protect yourself from the evil Shin stirring within and grow your capabilities to defeat them. In everyday life, repeatedly chanting Ack-shin-juk-au-ra is the best practice to protect yourself from evil Shin. Especially if you are suffering from severe possession phenomena or nightly sleep paralysis, you should chant Ack-shin-juk-au-ra even more. Whether sitting, lying down, watching TV, or walking, you can chant it loudly, softly, or silently in your mind, unrestricted by time, place, or posture. Ack-shin-juk-au-ra, 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 Ack-shin-juk-au-ra. There is a story related to this reciting method. One day, a religious person was saying, "Get away from me, Satan." I told him that commanding a Shin to leave does not make it depart, and even if it does, it will return anyway. I advised him to chant Ack-shin-juk-au-ra to defeat Satan. After trying Ack-shin-juk-au-ra once, he said it was difficult to pronounce. He then asked, "But isn't saying perish too harsh?" What am I supposed to say in this case? When you chant Ack-shin-juk-au-ra, it begins by eliminating the weaker evil Shin in your body. As you consistently repeat Ack-shin-juk-au-ra, you become increasingly powerful. As you do, the energy spreads around you, expanding the range in which you can eliminate the evil Shin. This is similar to a stone being thrown into a lake. The impact causes ripples that spread outward. Just as the size of the stone determines the impact, your power will be proportional to the level of your ability. By diligently reciting Ack-shin-juk-au-ra, you will begin to feel its effects and find yourself growing stronger before you even notice. The path of escaping from one's symbiotic Shin is a journey that even spiritual gurus cannot undertake on one's behalf. This is something that one must achieve through their own efforts to newly carve out their destiny. From the moment you choose truth, your destiny begins to change. Finally, their human Shin begins to take the central role in their body, living a new life, no longer swayed by the symbiotic Shin. This opportunity is not always present. Once the time has passed, you cannot achieve it even if you wish to. The urgency of the times is too great to waste years bound to meaningless things after death. It must be started right now, at this very moment. The reciting method, Ack-shin-juk-au-ra, embodies the wisdom, brightness, and courage to correctly seize the opportunity at this present time. Ack-shin-juk-au-ra carries the following important meanings. First, by starting Ack-shin-juk-au-ra, the human shin and the symbiotic shin begin to separate. Typically, 2 out of 3 people have their human shin and symbiotic shin merged, forming either a therianthrope or a completely merged state. This reciting method separates such mergers, and even for those not yet merged, it is the only holy shin's reciting method that can prevent future mergers of the human shin and symbiotic shin. An evil shin wouldn't chant Ack-shin-juk-au-ra to kill itself. So if someone can chant Ack-shin-juk-au-ra naturally, it means that they have the potential to free themselves from the evil shin. Second, the moment you chant Ack-shin-juk-au-ra, you unknowingly align yourself with the holy shin. From that point, the holy shin's ki, the heavenly ki, capable of judging the evil shin, connects with you. The heavenly ki can only be connected to those who side with the holy shin and fight against the evil shin. When the heavenly ki is given to a human, the amount will differ, depending on the person's capability. Let me put it in terms of electricity. Initially, a beginner might receive around 100 volts. As they become familiar with the uses of ki, their capacity for absorbing it increases: 200 volts, 300 volts, 1,000 volts, 10,000 volts, or more. In this way, the more you chant Ack-shin-juk-au-ra, the higher your level of ability to eliminate evil shin becomes. Third, as you fight while chanting Ack-shin-juk-au-ra, you begin to understand what righteous faith and Tao are. When you find that path, the divine gift from heaven is bestowed upon you, allowing the holy young to take a position within your human shin, thus rebirthing your human shin as a holy shin. The important thing is that only the human shin is the true self. This is because within the human shin resides the young that has reincarnated countless times. If you blindly pursue faith and Tao, you will become an empty shell when the shin leaves, even though you might use the power of the shin while it remains. In contrast, since the human shin is the true self, if your human shin is reborn as the holy shin, it will naturally ascend to heaven as a holy shin when leaving the body. It is crucial to understand that the shin that governs the holy shin is Hananim of the holy young and shin. As mentioned earlier in this book, human destiny is twofold: the destiny of the human shin and the destiny of the symbiotic shin. Once this fact is correctly understood, you must fight and defeat the evil shin. By doing so, as a human, you can correctly find the life and destiny of your body, and as a human shin, you can be reborn as a holy shin to gain the opportunity for eternal life in heaven. This is one of the secrets of eternal life. However, no one can undertake this path on your behalf. You must act and achieve it yourself. The beginning of this path is Ack-shin-juk-au-ra. It marks the start of the will to forever escape from the evil shin and the beginning of the heavenly Tao. In the new heaven era, people must transform things of evil nature into things of righteous nature by themselves, being bestowed with the divine gift from heaven. It must be understood that this is the last opportunity given by heaven to the people on earth at this present time. Therefore, now is not the time for people to fight each other. It is time to fight against the evil Shin, transcending all religions, sects, doctrines, and ideologies. If this opportunity is missed, it will never come again. It is said that only humans are given the chance of salvation at this present time, which is the greatest grace and blessing of heaven. It would be truly unfortunate not to receive this blessing in such a time. I sincerely hope that everyone who comes to realize this will attain the true life of the human Shin. The true life of the human Shin is one's true destiny. World peace will only be achieved when all the evil Shin on earth are defeated. I am absolutely confident that we will ultimately achieve eternal victory over the evil Shin. Ack-shin-juk-au-ra, 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 Ack-shin-juk-au-ra. Section 5. Jung-gu-up-jin-un-su. Reciting Method. I am introducing another reciting method to practice alongside Ack-shin-juk-au-ra. While Ack-shin-juk-au-ra is a reciting method for fighting evil Shin, there is a Buddhist mantra solely approved by heaven and containing heavenly key, Jung-gu-up-jin-un-su. Jung-gu-up-jin-un-su is a method that can remove one's bad karma and resolve the Shin that have entered due to that karma. I advise you to practice it consistently alongside Ack-shin-juk-au-ra. Jung-gu-up-jin-un-su is the name of the reciting method, and you must fully chant the following mantra. Jung-gu-up-jin-un, Suri-suri Mahasuri Susuri Sabaha. Jung-gu-up-jin-un, Suri-suri Mahasuri Susuri Sabaha. Make sure to chant one reciting method at a time. Do not mix two different reciting methods simultaneously. Please ensure that every pronunciation is correct. I recommend you chant the two different methods at a time that fits your schedule. For example, you could practice Ack-shin-juk-au-ra in the morning and Jung-gu-up-jin-un-su in the afternoon, or you could do Ack-shin-juk-au-ra for 1 hour and Jung-gu-up-jin-un-su for another hour. This way, you will develop your own routine over time. You can also chant it rhythmically, Jung-gu-up-jin-un, Suri-suri Mahasuri Susuri Sabaha, which can be quite enjoyable. These reciting methods are best practiced in a meditative posture. Many people sit idly without doing anything in the name of meditation. By chanting these reciting methods during meditation, the effect will be greatly enhanced. Rather than seeking vague enlightenment, you should build Shin's power through these holy Shin methods. These methods can be practiced by anyone, regardless of their religion, because they transcend religious boundaries and belong to the heavenly faith and Tao. For reference, there are many spellcasting or mantras from the Betrayal Heaven era that summon Shin. For example, with the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, when chanted, the sound of thumping would be heard as the rhino shin approached. In the past, when people chanted the mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, the rhino shin would come and drive away the disturbing shin by ramming them. However, if a stronger shin were within the person's body, the rhino shin would stop and turn away. Thus, some people experienced effects from such mantras, while others did not. Thanks to the endless chanting of these mantras, the rhino shin is now so annoyed that it won't even flinch. Chant 1,000 more times, and you might get a half-hearted glance if you're lucky. From now on, do not rely on these old mantras or spellcasting from the Betrayal Heaven era. Instead, I advise you to diligently practice Ack-shin-juk-au-ra and Jung-gu-up-jin-un-su, which are approved by the new heaven